Chapter 50. More about the various purposes of Saturn's ring. An example of glass blowing and the cooling oven. The delicately material ring inhabitants. Their way of life and their communication with the inhabitants of the planet. Absence of the animal world and seedless fruit trees. You can see how well designed and calculated everything is, especially in regards to the ring, which is located directly above the equator of Saturn. Furthermore, you have learned that on Saturn the whole of creation, beginning with the vegetable kingdom to the human being, manifests itself in giant bodies. The question should arise, is this all true? And if it is true, then why these giant-sized bodies? When the highest of all spirits in the body of Christ, while on earth, had enough room in accordance with his order, then why do these Saturnian human spirits have such giant bodies? The reason for this is that they do not experience any internal material or physical pressure. This pressure could ignite them when it originates from the outside, and the pressure is exerted to the inside. For the same reason, they are also given extraordinarily delicate bodies, so that the easily excitable spirit would not find anything that could pressure him above his nature, and easily stir him up to a complete ignition. Now imagine these large, proportionately heavy bodies, which as a result of the large volume of the planet itself, and as a result of the fact that the gravitational or attractive force in proportion to the planet should be much heavier than proportionately similar bodies on your much smaller Earth, would anything be gained for these kinds of spirits through the earlier careful undertakings if they were to be left in their bodies with such great ponderousness? That is why my science, which is on a somewhat higher level than that of your scientists, invented this ring, through which the gravitational force of the planet is considerably decreased, so that these giant bodies, in proportion to their planet, are almost 100 times lighter than your bodies in proportion to your much smaller Earth. This is an extraordinary, very important purpose of this ring, which has not been mentioned before. Even if it appears small by comparison through a telescope, this ring is of the greatest importance, because it is not only a ring around a planet, but should be considered a strong band over the entire universe. Now the question arises, is this the only and final purpose of this ring? Oh no! We shall learn about another purpose, which is by far greater and more important than the earlier ones. But before we shall touch upon and examine the main purpose, we must ask the question, is this ring inhabited? That is why I say here, if the main purpose arises from that, then the ring must be inhabited. But by whom and how? That is another question. But before I answer this question, as an example, I would like to direct your attention to one of the trades which you practice on earth, and that is the manufacture of glass. Once you have ground up the ingredients necessary for the manufacture of glass and mixed it with the necessary salts, then these ingredients are placed into a melting pot. And by applying the proper amount of heat, these ingredients become liquid. Observe this molten, white-hot glass matter. That is the condition of the Saturnian human being in his body on the planet. What happens to this substance when it reaches the proper liquidity? Probably all kinds of different vessels, containers, jars, and so on are made from this substance in the well-known manner, namely, by means of the air which fills the lungs of the glass blower and employing a glass blower as pipe. Here we have our Saturnite as a fine, translucent spiritual human being who, through the rebirth, relinquishes his physical body. Through this, the spirit already assumes a solid form. When the glass vessel is produced in this manner, the blower's pipe is removed, and then the vessel is placed into another pot and into a cooling oven. Now we have arrived at our ring. Because when a human being dies on Saturn, he is, in a manner of speaking, removed from the blower's pipe of the great glass manufacturer, and is taken in another pot into the cooling oven. This cooling oven is the ring. The first ring is for the cooling of the greatest heat. The second ring is for a further cooling off. And the last ring is for the pliancy. And only after that is every liberated human spirit on this planet capable of accepting love. I am of the opinion that, on account of this example, any further explanation is unnecessary, because the explanation is so clear. However, that does not mean that some would not ask the question, what is the purpose of giving these spirits a material place to stay? The answer to this question is very easy, because the spirits of the Saturnian human beings, when they step out of their first body, are not immediately pure spirits, as you can gather from their easy reappearance after death and the quick decomposition of their bodies. When these spirits enter the great ring, they still have a kind of material body, which of course is much lighter, more delicate and more pure than the earlier one they had while on the planet. And even this body becomes continuously purer and more spiritual as the Saturnian human being passes on to the higher spheres of the ring. The inhabitants eat, drink, and live on the rings just as they did on the planet, with only one difference. All the products are proportionately finer and more subtle, just like the human beings who are present here. The difference between this ring and the planet is that upon this second world there are no animals present. However, there are fruit trees, but none of them have any seeds for propagation, for they grow from the soil like mushrooms on earth. That these ring inhabitants can proceed from the ring for a short time to the planet itself upon the inner wish of the inhabitants of the planet, and with spiritual speed, can be ascertained from many such appearances of these spirits among the inhabitants of the planet itself. But since the dwellings and the living conditions of the spirit human beings on the ring are incomparably more magnificent, sublime, and comfortable, the ring spirits are not inclined to remain any longer on the planet than the will of the Great Spirit finds it necessary. That is why they are always pleased when they can return to the ring again. Now you know everything that is necessary and noteworthy about the ring. In the next chapter, we shall deal with the moons of this celestial body and conclude the communication about this celestial body.